let's talk about demonstrations. This is a kind of an old stat, but it's kind of how people remember exhibits. It's probably hard to see, it's so small, but this is also in your assets. Product interest is the top one, well-known company. Those ones you can't really control, but the next one you can control is product demos. 43% and 49% between the years 2000 and 2009 for remembering an exhibit. So a memorable demo can make a huge difference in how people perceive your company and they understand what it is that you do. So how can we create some of your demos? So now, does anyone, just before we get started, hands up if you have a demo or a demonstration or some sort of thing that you found people really find interesting. Anyone? Yeah? What do you?
Some equipment actually operational.
Okay. And what's your company?
It's Kimberly. It's grain and seed cleaning.
Grain and seed cleaning. And so you have a piece of equipment in the booth that you can operate. Is it a model or is it full scale or full scale? So you crank that thing up. Is it loud?
No, that's the good part.
It's quiet. It's quiet, but you get it going and people can see it operating and people go, oh, what's going on over there, right? Something like that?
It's loud enough to draw attention.
Loud enough to draw attention, but not loud enough to tick off your fellow exhibitors. Okay, perfect. So that's interesting. And when you start doing it, people just start gathering around, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So the challenge is that what do you do if you don't really have something that can be demoed, like a piece of machinery? You might have to get creative. We're going to talk about how to get creative about that. So what can you do in your booth? You need to think kind of out of the box. You might need to think of an analogy that is similar to what you do. You know, maybe if you're selling some sort of chemical, do you have something that can, I remember someone was selling a certain type of oil. It was a water-based oil, really weird. But it was the idea of the ions. That's what creates the lubricant. You know, they repel. And so they had this thing set up with magnets to show how this, and so you'd almost play with this thing and, oh, you know, you'd understand the technology behind it. So what can you do and you want to make it engaging and compelling, okay? You want to make it so that people can do it, people can watch it, they're involved, perhaps there's some sort of stake in it for them or decision making, something like that. You got to think of infomercials, right? Infomercials kind of have a bad rap, you know? I get the, hey, are you the sticky guy or the ShamWow guy when I'm at a trade show? Because I kind of look like him a little bit, right? And, but you can laugh about that and you can think about, yeah, infomercial. Have you ever noticed that all infomercials are the same? They're very, very similar, aren't they? They all have a certain thing. Why do you think that is? Because they work. They're effective, right? And and has anyone heard of Dan Kennedy? Marketer, Dan Kennedy, very famous, one of the most highest paid marketing consultants in the world. He talks about creating a swipe file. A swipe file is a file of he keeps his junk mail, is basically what it is. If he sees a piece of junk mail more than twice, he goes, oh, this must work. I'll put this in here. I might be able to use that later. So what I want you to do for your trade shows is when you're at a show, looking at other booths, and you probably already do this already, I want you to think to yourself, you know, what is working? And make a note of that, because someday down the road, maybe a different company or maybe you get a different budget, that opportunity might present itself and you'll be able to make an impact, okay? So create a swipe file. And like the pipe cutter, that's a reminder for me to tell you a little story. Global Petroleum Show 2008, I was in a very small booth, but across from us was a guy who sold these like industrial pipe cutters. Now, I'm used to the pipe cutters that you put on a little piece of copper pipe and you rotate around and it cuts it. We're talking cut and pipe, you know, huge things like this, you know, because it's an oil and gas show. And so it's kind of like this chain link thing that you hook up and you have a big kind of stick, this metal stick, and you put it in and you tighten it and then you rotate it down. And then you stick it in, you tighten it, and you rotate it down, and you do this. And he would start doing this, and that's all they sold with these pipe cutting things. But people would come by, and I'm sure they weren't real roughnecks, but they were, you know, maybe a little more in management, but they might not have seen these things happen or whatever, but they just start watching and and he's doing the same move. Tighten, rotate, tighten, rotate. But there was this thing that, there was this unfinished feel, they want to see that pipe come off, you know, they want to see it drop, right? And so they keep doing it, and finally, bang, 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 that thing would fall down and people, oh, okay, now I can leave, you know, like it was this weird thing. And so, what I said to them, I came up to them, I go, oh man, you're getting a good crowd for cutting pipe. I mean, you're not talking to them, you're not doing anything. I said, what if you could change it up, you can make it so that, you know, how many rotations, and people would bet, or not, you know, or they hold a card that says how many rotations, and they'd be cheering, I want it to fall this time. Oh, you know, you can engage them that way and get them excited. And we're getting them excited about what? Cutting pipe. You know what I mean? Isn't that weird? But that's just where a demo can really take shape, right? So there's all sorts of things that you can do. And but yeah, the pipe cutter, real interesting. So think about that. How can you extrapolate that out and make that work, okay?